This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr., and no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, the Niners news that you need to know. Lot to get to here. In addition to that, lot to get to this upcoming week. Here's our programming schedule. The 49ers Report will be live Thursday in our normal spot, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. Then we will be live for a must-win game for San Francisco. Niners-Packers, great NFL rivalry, Week 12, Sunday afternoon from the frozen tundra, Lambeau Field. If you haven't watched our watch party, best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the worldwide faithful family of more than 150,000 subscribers. On Sunday, it was the third time that the 49ers lost a divisional game this year in which they have had a lead with under 2 minutes to go. It was a soul-crushing and heartbreaking defeat. So coming off of that, and in a season where the Niners have physically been banged up and look mentally fatigued, what is the Niners' mindset? Here's what Kyle Shanahan said on Monday. I think that we were just pissed off from yesterday. That was a tough loss. We had every chance to win it, and we didn't get it done. So I think guys were disappointed and upset, but we all know each other pretty well in here. We understand our expectations, and we just had a good team meeting, addressed a bunch of what happened in the fourth quarter, watched it all together, and then we broke up into our position meetings. But I think guys are pissed and ready to put that game behind us. Today is a hard day to deal with because of some of the frustration with what happened. And now I think our guys can't wait to get to Green Bay as fast as we can. That's a good mentality to have. And the Niners have been a battle-tested team over the last few years. But now it's time to back that talk up with stellar play. The Niners have dug themselves a huge hole. They are a couple of games back in the division. They're on the outside looking in the NFC Playoff Picture. They have the talent. They have the ability. They've shown that. They've won over the last 3 years 70% of their games after the bye week. But the Green Bay Packers are a very difficult team. And what we've seen this year from this Niners team, they are what the record says they are. 5-5, completely average. They continue to pull off mistake after mistake, self-inflicted wound after wound, and it's a good mentality to have, but now it's time for the Niners to turn this ship around. And if they don't, it will go down as a very disappointing season coming off of what they accomplished last year, making it to the Super Bowl. And so far this year, it looks like they've endured a Super Bowl hangover. I thought what Bill Belichick said yesterday also on the Pat McAfee show was spot on when asked about the Niners. And I always like to say, the margin for error in NFL games is razor thin. But the 49ers led the Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks with under 2 minutes to go. They lost all three. If they won those games, they'd be 8-2. And Bill Belichick said that so many games in this league are so close, they come down to a play or two. You win them one year, you lose them the next year. And when you lose them, you think the gap is an ocean, and it really isn't. It's just a handful of plays. But look, in the end, their season will be defined on what happens the last 6 games of the year. Given the ugly nature with how the Niners have choked those games away, especially against divisional teams who they are better than, this gap right now for San Francisco seems like an ocean. Because it has been very, very ugly and inexcusable to lose those games. But in reality, as easy as the Niners are 5-5, they could be 8-2, and it really is a handful of plays. And that could give you hope. That could give you encouragement as a Niners fan that San Francisco could turn it around, get into the playoffs, play their best football at the end of the year, and if they do go into the playoffs hot, they're a dangerous team, and no team in the NFC wants to take on San Francisco. Speaking of the NFC, here's a look at the NFC playoff picture. Again, Niners have really shot themselves in the foot here. They've mastered the art of just hurting themselves. How many times on Sunday were they matriculating downfield offensively, moving the ball? They even got in the red zone or near the red zone. penalty, bad play. They either had to settle for a field goal or they squandered drives that could have resulted in touchdowns and they had to punt due to some of those penalties. They have a lot of ground to make up. 5-5 in a loaded NFC and a closely contested NFC, it is not where you want to be as a football team. San Francisco is going to have to come close to winning out. It all starts with this game against Green Bay, who currently is the 6th seed. If the Niners win against the Packers, over a 50% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose, they have a 15% chance to make the playoffs. I think their pathway is to win the NFC West. Keep in mind also of note that the Cardinals and Seahawks will play 2 times over the next 3 weeks. But the Niners here, 1-3 in the division, all 3 of those losses, sour defeats. And that's a big reason why they are in last place in this division. Another reason for optimism here for San Francisco. The Niners offense through 10 games has actually played pretty well from a statistical standpoint. Eye test-wise, this has been a very frustrating offense to watch. But total yards, they are second. Yards per play, they are second. Net passing yards per attempt, they are 4th. Rushing yards per attempt, they are 4th. Points scored, 8th. Average yards per drive, 1st. Yet, even though they're 1st in average yards per drive, they are 10th in average points per drive. Them being 26th in red zone touchdown percentage, a big reason for that. San Francisco has to do a couple of things in order to turn this ship around, especially on the offensive side of the football. They need to clean up their penalties. The bad blocking that I saw upon watching the tape in the run game against Seattle, inexcusable. The Niners know what their scheme is, yet they weren't executing their scheme. It was bad. They need to stop pulling off these self-inflicted wounds and shooting themselves in the foot. Is this loss against Seattle the loss that can wake San Francisco up? And a microcosm of the season, the Niners had a 14-play drive against Seattle on Sunday. It ended without points. It ended without a turnover or a turnover on downs. That is almost impossible to do in the National Football League. But that has kind of been the season for San Francisco. Defensively, the defense has to be better. The offense didn't do them any favors on Sunday, that is for sure. But the Niners have the 2nd most points allowed in the NFL in the final 2 minutes this year. They have blown these 3 divisional games when leading inside 2 minutes. A lot of that comes down to coaching. Some of it comes down to the offense not doing the defense favors and the defense being worn down. It comes down to the front office not making a trade for an edge rusher, which they should have at the NFL trade deadline. It comes down to the defense not having enough depth. But as far as coaching goes, it's Kyle Shanahan regretting his decision to go with a brand new defensive play caller, Nick Sorensen. Brian Baldinger, he's an NFL mind I trust. He said this about Sorensen. Opposed to Steve Spagnuolo and some of these other teams in the league that are good blitzing teams, the Niners just don't know how to get a free hit to the quarterback. They just don't dial it up. They don't overload. They don't disguise. They're pretty bland in what they do. The return of Robert Saleh, it's pretty intriguing. Let's get to our sponsor for today's show. A lot more to get to, but first let's tell you about Prize Picks. More than 10 million active members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for more versatile ways to be able to get your winnings and check out. Head to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. And right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Christian McCaffrey, more than 78.5 rushing yards. He thinks that he's close. He has to play better. Christian Watson, less than 43.5 receiving yards. Do you think that Deommodore Lenoir, Renardo Green, maybe Charvarius Ward can lock him down? Then you might like the less there. Again, get $50 when you play $5. prizepicks.com/CLNS. As for the latest Niners injury news, George Kittle missed that game against Seattle. Niners really missed him. That's why I said in the lead up to that game, The player on offense who San Francisco could least afford to lose, George Kittle. It showed in the blocking game. It showed in the pass game. It showed with leadership. Niners looked timid at the end of that game. He has a chance to practice on Wednesday. That's good news. Nick Bosa, 2 hurt obliques and a hip injury. Kyle Shanahan said he's going to be monitored all week. Has a chance to play on Sunday, but he barely fought through to play against Tampa Bay 2 weeks ago. Fought through those injuries once again to play against Seattle, then hurt his other oblique. Is it smart to just sit him? Brock Purdy, day-to-day with a shoulder injury. If Brock Purdy can't play, this Niners team might be screwed. Some good news here, Charvarius Mooney-Ward back with the team. And speaking of Nick Bosa, him getting hurt killed this Niners defense on Sunday. It changed the game. With Bosa on the field, Seahawks couldn't do anything. They averaged 3.3 yards per play. With Bosa off the field, who had 2 sacks, was getting double and triple teamed, the Seahawks put up 6.1 yards per play after the Bosa injury, scored both of their touchdowns when Bosa was out. The Niners don't have enough depth along the defensive line, especially at edge rusher. San Francisco should have made a trade at the NFL trade deadline. Let's get to this too. Is Brock Purdy regressing a little bit? Has the NFL figured him out? His first 22 starts, he had a 118 passer rating. His last 15, including the playoffs, 91.5. We're going to continue to keep tabs on that because the Niners have a big decision to make after the season. Do they pay Brock Purdy? Does he play under the final year of his rookie contract for right around $1 million? Does he even take a deal? Does he try to show what his worth is? Do the Niners sign him to a short-term deal worth lesser money? It's going to continue to be a talking point here. As for this Niners offense, San Francisco weirdly has problems with separating. They are dead last in the NFL at average target separation when catching the football. The Panthers, Giants, and Cowboys are in front of San Francisco. That's brutal. And we go back to what Brian Baldinger said on the Niners receivers struggling to get separation. Quote, "There's an old belief in this business. If you can't beat man coverage, you got to get new wide receivers." Pretty telling. The Niners are missing Brandon Ayuk. He was good at beating man, good route runner, good footwork, good separation. They also miss his long ball. And I think Brock Purdy misses that long ball too, because that long ball hookup between Purdy and Ayuk last year, it was dynamite, and it opened up a lot of things underneath and for players to pick up yards after the catch. Another area where the Niners are struggling. And when the Niners are struggling to create separation, makes Brock Purdy's job a lot harder. The Niners also moving forward need to manage Christian McCaffrey's workload. The amount of snaps that he played on Sunday, second game coming off bilateral Achilles tendonitis. There was only one game last year where he played that many snaps. Overtime in the Super Bowl. When Christian McCaffrey got traded here, the Niners made that move because they needed a running back. They didn't have good backups. Elijah Mitchell, he's always hurt. You have good backup running backs. Jordan Mason, prior to McCaffrey coming back, was top 5 in rushing yards. It's inexcusable he's not being used. Especially with the struggling offensive line, he can help negate that by just running hard. Isaac Guerendo, talented back. Deebo Samuel has minus 40 rushing yards over expected this year. 268th out of 280 players. Stop running it with Deebo. McCaffrey, he's 257th, minus 28 through 2 games. Jordan Mason is 4th, plus 196. Isaac Guerendo is 17th, plus 76. Some of these issues are correctable for San Francisco, but is it too late? We'll see on Sunday. You win that game, you have a 50% chance to make the playoffs. If not, playoff chances plummet. Another reminder, subscribe to the show. We'll be back later today with another episode, so be sure to be on the lookout for that, and that's why you subscribe.